Why was Book of Enoch removed from the Bible? Enoch was at first accepted in the Christian Church but later excluded from the biblical canon. Its survival is due to the fascination of marginal and heretical Christian groups, such as the Manichaeans, with its syncretic blending of Iranian, Greek, Chaldean, and Egyptian elements. In this video, I will walk you through the mind-blowing secrets in the Book of Enoch. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not a curious tuber already, and hit the like button and share among your circles.
The Book of Enoch is an ancient Hebrew apocalyptic religious text, ascribed by tradition to Enoch, the great-grandfather of Noah. Enoch contains unique material on the origins of demons and Nephilim, why some angels fell from heaven, an explanation of why the Genesis flood was morally necessary, and prophetic exposition of the 1,000-year reign of the Messiah. The older sections of the text, mainly in the Book of the Watchers, are estimated to date from about 200 to 300 BC, and the latest part, the Book of Parables, probably to 100 BC. Enoch. The Hebrew Bible has very little to say about him in the Book of Genesis. He appears briefly in the genealogy of Adam, after fathering Methuselah and a bunch of other kids. The text simply says, Enoch walked with God, then he was no more, because God took him. But what does, because God took him, even mean? Well, early Jews and Christians were rarely satisfied with such vague biblical passages, which leads us to its spin-off, the Book of Enoch. This text was so popular for early Christians that even the New Testament cites it. The Book of Jude in the New Testament directly references Enoch chapter 1, verse 9. But for a book that was so popular for ancient Jews and Christians, very few people today know about it. So, what is the Book of Enoch, and what does it really say? First of all, there's not just one Book of Enoch. In fact, the Book of Enoch typically refers to First Enoch. However, there's also a Second Enoch, which probably dates back to the 1st century CE, but is preserved in later manuscripts written in the Church Slavonic language, and there's also a Third Enoch. It survives in Hebrew and was preserved by Rabbinic Judaism. This video will be focusing on the first Book of Enoch. The next consideration, calling it the Book of Enoch is kind of an inaccurate description. First Enoch is a compilation of several texts stitched together. There are obvious and abrupt seams between sections that are best explained by the theory that someone brought them all together into a compilation sometime in the past. First Enoch has 5 major sections and 2 appendices. The oldest sections of the text probably date back to the 4th or 3rd century BC, however. The most complete manuscripts of the text date to the 15th or 16th centuries written in the Ethiopic language. Ethiopic, also known as Ge'ez, is Semitic language, a cousin of Hebrew, Arabic, and Amharic, one of the main spoken languages in Ethiopia today. Ethiopic is the liturgical language of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, kind of like how Latin was historically used in liturgies for Catholics, or the Coptic language for Coptic Orthodox Christians. So you can see that the Book of Enoch had a long journey from when it was first composed, to when our most complete manuscripts were created. Enoch was probably originally written in Aramaic before being translated into Greek, and then finally into Ethiopic. Big chunks of the Aramaic version of Enoch were found among the Dead Sea Scrolls at the site of Qumran. One Dead Sea Scroll fragment contains several sections of Enoch in one text, which shows that the different sections were already circulating as one compilation by the 1st century BCE. That's a quick overview of the text itself. But what about the content? What does First Enoch actually say? We already saw the first blurb, a few short sentences that says, God took Enoch. The second blurb, which inspires the entire opening section of First Enoch, is an odd story from Genesis 6, 1 through 4, about divine beings having sex with humans. Genesis says that before Noah's flood, divine beings called Beni Elohim, which literally translates to children of God, come down to earth to have sex with human women, who then give birth to beings called Nephilim. The text says these Nephilim were the mighty men of old, warriors of renown. That's it. Nothing else, no more mention of who these Nephilim were or their exploits. No backstory about these sons of God. And you know what that means. It's a story ready for a spin-off. Enoch vastly expands these few verses into the Book of the Watchers. The sons of God are no longer a vague category of heavenly beings, but a whole society of fallen angels called the Watchers, led by their chief, Samyaza. Their children, the Nephilim, are giants that start to wreak havoc on earth. Enoch 7, verse 3 to 5 says that the giants began to kill men, and to devour them, and then kill all the beasts, and drink their blood. Sounds like something out of a horror film. This section also describes the Watchers as devious angels, skilled in evil, supernatural arts, which they then taught to humanity. Chapter 8 says that the Watcher Assail taught weapons of war to humanity. Semjaza taught enchantments and root cuttings, Armeros the resolving of enchantments, Barakijal taught astrology, Kakabel the constellations, Ezekiel the knowledge of the clouds, Erakiel the signs of the earth, Shamsiel the signs of the sun, and Sariel the course of the moon. As the Watchers and Nephilim continue to devastate the earth and pollute humans with evil knowledge, the story culminates in humanity crying out to God for help. In response, God dispatches his 4 archangels to set things right. He instructs one to warn Noah about the coming flood, another to imprison the fallen angel Azazel and cast him into darkness. God orders Gabriel to destroy the Nephilim with a downright chilling passage, telling Gabriel to go to the bastards, to the half-breeds, to the sons of miscegenation and destroy the sons of the Watchers. And finally God commissions Michael to imprison the king of the Watchers, Shemaheza. In the story, God sends Enoch as a prophet or emissary to the Watchers to warn them that they'll be destroyed. The remaining sections of Enoch contain mostly prophecy and visions. Rather than summarizing each and every section, let's focus on the major themes running through these prophecy: the expectation of a Messiah, final judgment, salvation, resurrection, and heavenly journeys. All of these are hallmarks of the cultural context and genre of First Enoch. Jewish apocalypticism. Apocalyptic literature is the name scholars call a bunch of texts that became super popular among Jews during the Second Temple period. These were texts that generally describe mystical visions of heaven, where an angel would reveal to a prophet the end times, or a coming judgment of the world. Enoch is one of the oldest Jewish apocalyptic texts, even older than another famous apocalyptic text to the Book of Daniel. That's to say, if we follow the scholarly consensus that Daniel was composed during the Hellenistic era of the 2nd century BCE, many of the terms commonly associated with Daniel, like the Son of Man and the Messiah, can be found first in the Book of Enoch. In one chapter, Enoch sees a vision in which the Son of Man is commissioned. He will be the staff for the righteous. He will be the light of the nations, and all who dwell on the earth will fall down and worship before him. For those of you familiar with the New Testament, this sort of language should sound familiar as it's all applied to Jesus as well. But in this text, Enoch himself is named the Son of Man. Chapter 71, verse 14 says, "You are that Son of Man who was born for righteousness." We also find the idea of hell in Enoch, another theological concept seen later in Christianity. Remember that the concept of hell does not exist in the older text of the Hebrew Bible. It is a later innovation that gained popularity during the Second Temple period, especially in apocalyptic literature. In chapter 21:7, Enoch beholds a narrow chasm extending to the abyss, where he saw a great fire burning and flaming. The text says this place is a prison for the angels. Here they will be confined forever. Okay, so that's a summary of the content. Basically an entire text, super concerned that the current world is evil and needs to be judged and renewed. Now let's briefly go over some of the key points in each of the 5 books of First Enoch. The Book of the Watchers. This first section of the Book of Enoch describes the fall of the Watchers, the angels who fathered the Nephilim, and narrates the travels of Enoch in the heavens. The Book of Watchers contains information such as the fall of the angels, names and functions of the 7 archangels, Sheol or the underworld, the 7 mountains in the northwest, and the Tree of Life. Chapters 37-71 of the Book of Enoch are referred to as the Book of Parables. The Book of Parables contains information such as the coming judgment of the wicked, the 4 archangels, astronomical secrets, the new heaven and the new earth, final judgment of Azazel, the Watchers and their children, quaking of the heaven, Behemoth and Leviathan, and the names and functions of the fallen angels and Satan's, the secret oath. Chapters 72-82 are referred to as the astronomical book. This book contains descriptions of the movement of heavenly bodies and of the firmament, as a knowledge revealed to Enoch in his trips to heaven guided by Uriel. The astronomical book contains information such as the sun, the moon and its phases, the lunar year, the 12 winds and their portals, and the 4 corners of the world. Chapters 83-90 are referred to as the Book of of Dream Visions, containing a vision of the history of Israel, all the way down to what the majority have interpreted as the Maccabean Revolt. This book of dream visions includes information such as the fall of the angels and the demoralization of mankind, the punishment of the fallen angels by the archangels, from the death of Noah to the Exodus, judgment of the fallen angels, the New Jerusalem, the conversion of the surviving Gentiles, the resurrection of the righteous, and the Messiah. The final book in 1st Enoch is referred to as the Epistle of Enoch. The Epistle of Enoch contains information such as the apocalypse of weeks, the last 3 weeks, the evils in store for sinners and the possessors of unrighteous wealth, terrors of the day of judgment, assurances given to the righteous, admonitions to sinners and the falsifiers of the words of uprightness, the birth of Noah, and God and the Messiah to dwell within man.
Thanks for watching. Give this video a thumbs up if you want to see more videos from this channel. If you knew of any useful information on this topic, let me know in the comments below. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button and notifications icon for more useful information and tips from The Curious Jew.